Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm doing a review of the new EP from Aphex Twin, Cheetah. Alrighty then, Aphex Twin, or Richard David James, as you undoubtedly already know, is one of the most influential names in all of electronic music. I've reviewed the man's entire discography, save for a couple of really obscure EPs that I didn't particularly care about. If you want to hear my thoughts on those, you can watch those reviews. I will link the playlist in the description, but for the time being I'll give you a quick summary. Classic, also a classic, though only recently achieved this status with me. Has some fantastic moments, but maybe not one of his better ones overall. Fantastic when I wrote everything that happened in it, but kinda soured on me with too many repeat listens. Also a classic. Not great, but better than I initially gave it credit for. Which brings us to this. I wasn't planning on giving this a proper review, to be honest, as I feel like RDJ's prime is well behind him. While Cyro was in fact a grower, I haven't found any of his recent stuff to be anything particularly special, although the guy does in fact have 3 9 out of 10 albums. I'd be lying if I said I was hugely interested in anything new he had to offer. Had it not been for the flood of requests, I would have skipped this altogether, but here we are regardless. I didn't really want to cover this because it's just an EP, and while I guess I do review EPs now, I personally consider Aphex Twin various EPs and side projects to very much be hit and miss. And I made a whole video outlining the ones that I felt were most noteworthy, so I highly recommend you check that out now. But yeah, I'll have to admit I wasn't actually all that excited for this EP. Recently, while I did like his Cyro album, I didn't particularly like his computer-controlled acoustic instruments EP, and I thought his Orphan DJ Selec EP just be alright. Leading up to this EP, RDJ released his first music video in years, directed by a 12-year-old, for the track Circlon 3 Mix. That's not a real word in Russian, is it? Of course it isn't. But I did really like this video. It kind of reminded me of when I was a kid and used to record little videos on my cheap digital camera and throw them together in Windows Movie Maker, which is very obviously what this kid also did. You should wear a t-shirt that said "I'm number one, so I try harder" on it, by the way. The thing about the actual music, though, is that I only had to hear about 15 seconds of the song in the video to pretty much call the entire contents of the EP. I mean, it was named after an old electronics company from the 1980s. By the way, I didn't realize earlier that but a handful of songs off of his Cyro album were also named after old vintage synthesizers, but I digress. But without beating around the bush, is this EP any good? Yeah, it's alright. It's basically about as good as I expected it to be. Though, at the same time, it didn't have anything that I didn't expect. It's basically done in the same style as his Analord series. Lots of vintage acid house synth tones and 808 beats. Melodies are kind of abstract, but not to the point of being unengaging, and basically like most of the melodies from Cyro, maybe a little more accessible. Fun fact, 2 of the tracks from here were originally released on his SoundCloud page, but removed later, being Cheetah T7B and Circlon 3 whatever mix. Now I do like this EP, but it feels like other stuff I've heard from him before. It's just more Analord material, basically. I mean, it's good. Heck, it's probably more consistently enjoyable than any of the individual Analord EPs, but it is just basically like another volume of that series, and we've got no shortage of material just like this from him. I suppose now the question is, how am I going to deal with RDJ being here with us, active and actually releasing things on what I assume to be a regular basis now. On one hand, I will admit he has carved out his own niche, and with all the other old artificial intelligence veterans like Autaker, Speedy J, B12, the Black Dog, etc. having either disappeared or moved on to different territory, or in Speedy J's case, both. I will have to admit, it's not like anybody else is making vintage acid house like this in 2016. But, I don't know, Aphex Twin has already made so much music that sounds like this with Analord and Cyro and Orphan DJ Selec, etc. If he's gonna make old rehashes like this, maybe he could try something like on Selected Ambient Works again? either volume. I know I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but this EP really didn't offer much for me to discuss. It's enjoyable enough, the guy's melodies are still good, but offered absolutely zero surprises, and I came away from it having learned nothing. The video was by far the best thing about it, and probably had the best song too. Even Orphan DJ Selig I think I'd rank a bit higher, because it actually did surprise me, even though the melodies here on Cheetah are better. I didn't expect the songs on there to like flow into each other. That was an actual surprise. If you like his material on the Analord series, you'll like this as well, but I've never considered the series to be that amazing in the first place. I mean, I liked it, but not so much that I thought there wasn't enough of it. I mean, there were 11 EPs after all. While this EP is probably better than any of the Analord EPs individually, I honestly don't see myself returning to this that often. If you really like that side of RDJ, then it's worth checking out. It's good in all the same ways the Analord series is good, but it's nothing special either, and by the time Aphex ever decides to come out with the 7th album, this EP is likely to disappear through the cracks, at least for me. Overall, I think I'm feeling a 6.7 out of 10. Favorite tracks: Cheetah T2 LD Spectrum, Circlon 3 Kabloola Mix, and Circlon 1. Least favorite track, Cheetah 1B MS800. But of course, this is just my opinion, you can feel free to disagree with it. But I'd like to hear your thoughts, I suppose, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.